Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into something different. There's a market, yes, a real one, that only opens when it rains, not during drizzle, not with clouds rolling in. No, it waits for that perfect, soaking down your back kind of
Rain, and then only then it hums to life. No sign, no schedule, just puddles, mist, and a peculiar sort of electricity in the air. You find yourself standing in front of it now. The rain has been falling steadily for the past 20 minutes, and like a film set fading into focus, the market has appeared almost sheepishly between two crumbling brick alleys that weren't there yesterday. There's a soft, golden glow under each canopy, like a memory refusing to fade. And the smell, a mix of old paper, wet wood, and maybe a hint of spiced cocoa. You're not entirely sure. You wonder what would happen if it just stopped raining now. Would it all vanish before you even stepped in? What if it only looks like a market and is actually something else, a test, a portal, or worse, a tax form in disguise? You're not sure how long it'll stay open, but one thing's certain, you wouldn't survive in here without a sense of humor, or galoshes. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from, and what time is it there right now? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step over the slick threshold of cobblestone and tarp. Immediately the air changes. It's quieter here, not just because of the rain muffling the world outside, but because everything inside seems cautious. You get the sense that even the stalls are holding their breath. The first thing that catches your eye is a table of umbrellas. Nothing odd about that, except, well, every umbrella is inside out. And there, behind the stall, sits an elderly woman wearing 3 coats and 2 different shoes. She's arranging umbrellas like a florist might arrange roses. "Late, Aunt?"
we, she says, not looking at you. You blink. "Excuse me?" I said. "Late, aren't we?" "But backwards, didn't you hear it?"
She replies. She lifts a finger, wags it toward her mouth, and begins to speak, backwards. Word by word, clear as crystal, as though her entire mind is rewound. Then she laughs like she just told the world's best knock-knock joke. And your brain hiccups trying to catch up. "Don't worry," she says, in perfect clarity. "It always sounds like nonsense at first, but that's just how we speak here." You try to respond, but feel like you've just been invited into a joke you're not quite cool enough to understand. She offers you an umbrella that's shimmering slightly, too iridescent for this dull light, and tells you it's not for the rain, but for memory leaks, whatever that means. As you hold the umbrella, she leans in close. Her breath smells faintly.
"Of cinnamon and something older, this place? It wasn't always here," she says. "Used to be a parade route during the Civil War. A marching band was passing through during a thunderstorm when they, poof, vanished into the fog. Locals
Say this market grew where they disappeared. Some say they're still playing, just a few rows deeper in. You're still trying to decide if that's a metaphor, when she adds, almost absently, historians still argue about whether the 1864 Chattanooga Rain Parade ever really happened. Personally, I think the trumpets got lonely. Then she smiles, like she knows exactly where you've come from. "Keep going," she says. "Next stall sells bread that Napoleon never ate. Or maybe he did. Depends which timeline you believe in." You glance back at the street. It's fogging over. Whatever's
out there is less important now.
The only real direction is forward. You take a breath, grip your memory-proof umbrella tighter, and move deeper into the market. Rain taps on canvas above like fingers playing piano. A sense of unfolding stories hangs in the mist, waiting, watching, warm and slightly ridiculous, and you're already part of it. The path between stalls feels crooked, like a hallway in a dream, narrower than it should be, tilting just enough to make you question whether it's your balance or the bricks beneath your feet. But the rain stays steady, like a metronome ticking, behind each footstep, gently urging you onward. And then the smell hits you. Warm, rich, buttery, like the kind of bread that makes your stomach growl even if you've just eaten. You follow the scent until you reach a cart that looks like it rolled in from a different century. It's all dark iron, burnished wood, and curling smoke from a chimney that should not logically fit inside this market. But there it is. A hand reaches out holding a chunk of bread the size of your fist. You don't see who offers it, but the bread is warm in your palm and you don't think twice before taking a bite. It's strange. Delicious, yes, but there's something else, a taste you can't quite place. Something dusty and brave, like the flavor of a long journey made in leather boots. The man behind the cart appears as if summoned by your confusion. He's tall with a baker's apron and a face like an unmade bed, rumpled, tired, familiar, in a way you can't explain. That there is Napoleon's fourth favorite loaf, he says without introduction. You raise an eyebrow. Fourth favorite? Indeed. The man had very specific taste. The top three were lost in the siege of Toulon. This one survived. Technically, sort of. Depends on how you define exist. He gestures to a sign above the cart that reads, "Try what the Emperor might."
Have eaten if he'd made it to Cincinnati.
You chew slower. He leans in, voice low. Legend says he had a secret stash of recipes from Egypt, some sort of flavor alchemy passed on by desert mystics. People talk about his battles, his ego, his hat. But nobody talks about how the man invented puff pastry time travel. You try not to choke, he chuckles. Relax. Probably just yeast hallucinations. Then he grows thoughtful, eyes scanning the rain outside the canopy like it might spell out a warning. Still, he murmurs, food has memory. There's a reason some meals haunt people. I once made a cinnamon tart so accurate to 1799 that a woman remembered an argument with her ancestor. You glance at the other loaves on display. Each has a little plaque. Baguette of forgotten treaties, focaccia della conquista, do not toast, pretzel, possibly Austro-Hungarian. This one just smells like 1832. You ask him if any of these were actually served to soldiers. He shrugs. Some were meant to be. Others are, what's the term? Historical approximations? Edible reenactments? Honestly, even historians can't agree. Some still debate whether Napoleon ever actually liked bread. There's a theory that he faked gluten tolerance for political appeal. You laugh, but he's dead serious. Anyway, he says, wrapping another loaf in old newspaper. You should take this one too. It's laced with memory crumbs, helps with dream clarity. But be careful, sometimes. You remember things that never happened. You hesitate. What kind of things? He pauses. Like a childhood birthday party you know didn't happen. Or a letter you wrote to someone who hasn't been born yet. You take the bread. As you leave the stall, the air seems thicker, like the past is clinging to you with flour-dusted fingers. The rain beyond the canopy grows louder, or maybe you're just more aware of it now. You glance at the loaf in your bag and wonder if you're carrying part of someone else's history. Someone coughs to your left, and you turn to see a figure in a trench coat unfolding a damp map, its corners flapping in the breeze that shouldn't exist indoors. The stall behind him is covered in parchment and scrolls, and something about it feels misplaced, like a nation that never made it onto the globe. The bread baker's last words echo behind you, almost teasing, "Next stop, the map stall." Careful, though some places aren't meant to be found, and with that, the market curves again, funneling you deeper. The rain doesn't let up, neither does your curiosity. You drift toward the parchment-covered stall, where scrolls ripple in the soft wind like kelp underwater. There's no vendor in sight at first, just shelves, bins, and flat drawers labeled in tight handwriting, unconfirmed borders, territories of doubt and ongoing maybes. Then a voice calls from beneath the table, "Careful with New Baffinland. She's still drying. You freeze." From behind a curtain of hanging nautical charts emerges a man in a corduroy vest and one sock. His grey hair is tucked under a pith helmet, far too clean to be trustworthy. "Ah, a seeker," he says, peering at you like you've wandered into a doctoral thesis. "What do you think you're looking for?" "I don't know." "A map?" He cackles. "A map, they say, as if it's just a piece of paper." No, maps are lies we agree on." He gestures to the display behind him. "This, my friend, is the collection of unmade geography, places imagined, erased, or accidentally believed into being." You peer closer at a map labeled the Republic of Candlefish. The coastline is suspiciously shaped like a sleeping otter. Candlefish was added to US naval charts in 1892 by mistake, he explains. Cartographers sneezed during a pen stroke, ended up lasting 6 decades until someone realized there was never any land between Oregon and Hawaii, just fog. You blink. He pulls out another scroll and unfurls it with dramatic flair. This one reads the Federal Department of Lost Counties 1927 draft. On it, dozens of shaded areas, counties that never officially existed but were used in tax records, war drafts, or voting booths. People got married, went to war, and paid rent in these non-counties, he says softly. And when the lines vanished, so did their paperwork. Do historians know this, you ask? Oh, they argue about it, he grins. Some say it's a bureaucratic mirage, others think
it was a political trick. Me, I think places don't disappear unless we want them to.
You feel an itch behind your eyes, like your brain is stretching to fit this new information. He offers you a folded square of paper. You open it and find a miniature map of the market itself, drawn in graphite, detailed to the last puddle. But there's something strange. The part you're standing in isn't on it. It updates after you leave a place, he whispers, to prevent accidents. You don't ask what that means. Instead, you point to a large red X marked in the upper corner of the map. What's this? He lowers his voice. That's the archive. Only opens when the market rains at exactly 3:33 p.m. and only when someone with a scar shaped like the letter E is present. You instinctively glance at your wrist. Nothing. He chuckles. You'd be surprised how many people check. Before you can ask anything else, a low bell chimes in the distance. The sound is warm, metallic, almost sleepy. The cartographer straightens. Next stall's opening, he says. You don't want to miss the bookstore. It's only got endings. You thank him, though it feels woefully insufficient, and step away. The rain outside the canopy has softened to a whisper. The ground beneath your shoes squishes with a sound like newspaper being folded underwater. And just ahead, nestled between an umbrella rack and a display of rubber ducks in military uniforms, you see a crooked awning made of old typewriter ribbons. A sign above reads, "Last pages only." Because apparently you're about to browse a bookstore that's decided beginnings are overrated. And honestly, You're kind of into it. You duck beneath the typewriter ribbon awning, and the rain instantly feels 100 years away. The air here is thick with dust and ink, and the faint sweetness of pages turned too many times. The shelves groan under the weight of books that appear to have been chewed on by time itself, spines warped, corners curled, a few titles scorched like they survived a fire and an argument. You expect to find someone behind a counter, maybe a tweedy clerk or a reclusive novelist in disguise, but there's no one. Just a tinkling wind chime made from old fountain pens and an unspoken rule that you're meant to browse in silence. The books are arranged by tone rather than title. There's a section labelled regretful, another vaguely triumphant, and a small shelf marked too soon. Each book you open is already at its final page, literally no beginnings, no middles, only endings. Some are beautiful, poetic even, and so as the last light dimmed behind her, she smiled. Not because she was safe, but because she had finally stopped running. Others are brutal, and when the town awoke, the statue was gone, along with everyone who remembered why it mattered. You flip through a slim volume titled The Cloud Collector and read, "The jar cracked at last, letting out a rain no one could explain. By morning, every dry well in the valley was full, and not a single child could recall what their father looked like." A chill walks its fingers up your spine. Near the back of the shop, you find a leather-bound book that feels heavier than it should.
It has no title, no markings, just an end page in crisp black ink. And with that, you stepped out of the rain and vanished into the footnotes of your own story. You shut the book, heart thudding. "That one's popular," comes a voice, low
and papery. You turn to see a man in a scarf that may once have been a curtain. He's balancing a stack of books with one hand and an empty teacup with the other. His glasses are cracked, but he peers at you with perfect clarity. "You don't sell full stories?" you ask. He shakes his head. "No demand. Everyone wants the end. Fast, clean, conclusive. No one has time for rising action anymore." He sets the books down. One is titled The End of the Roman Empire, in one sentence. You flip to the last page and read, "They stopped fixing things because no one remembered how they were built." Harsh, you say. He nods solemnly. True, though. You ask if he has any endings from books that were never published. "Plenty," he says. "We specialize in the untold, diaries never finished, speeches cut short, histories that dried up before they could be debated." Pulls one from a locked drawer and hands it to you. It's simply labeled LD 1917. You read the final sentence. He crossed the border with nothing but a violin case and a lie too big to carry back. The ink is faded, but the words land with strange weight. "Some think that was the spark for a rebellion no one remembers," the man says. "But historians still debate if it ever really happened. Some say it's a hoax. Others claim the violin turned up in Prague during the Cold War, wrapped in forged letters." You hold the book gently, like it might sigh in your hands, deep.
"Happens to the rest of the story?" you ask. He shrugs. "Maybe someone else writes it. Maybe no one dares." You return the book to its shelf. As you do, the lights in the shop flicker slightly, like the endings themselves are exhaling. The man gestures toward the door. Next stalls a mailbox, but not the kind you're thinking of. You raise an eyebrow. "Don't worry," he smiles. "It's safe, unless you're allergic to apologies." The chime rings as you step back into the damp alley of the market. The rain has picked up again, sharper now, more insistent, and just ahead, beneath a crooked green awning that looks like it was sewn from old train tickets, stands a rusted mailbox.
taller than you. Its door hangs slightly ajar, and pinned to it is a card that reads, "Letters never sent, but always received." And you think, maybe it's time you open someone else's mail. You approach the towering mailbox, half expecting it to groan or whisper as you get close. It doesn't, but the air around it feels tense. Like the stillness in a room right before someone finally says what they've been meaning to say for years. The box is labeled in neat brass lettering. Dead letters do not return. You look around. There's no clerk, no sign of supervision, just a small crate beneath the box, stuffed with yellowing envelopes, some bound with string, others loosely stacked like forgotten regrets. A hand-painted sign leans against the side of the crate. Please read only one, unless it's about you. You reach in and pull out the top envelope. It's addressed to the girl on platform 4, June 3rd, 1946. I'm sorry I couldn't. Stay. No return address. Just a faded red stamp and a blot of water damage that looks suspiciously like a fingerprint. You slip the letter out and begin to read. June 3rd, 1946. Darling, I should have said something, anything. Instead, I left you standing there with my scarf and that sad little smile. You looked right through me like you already knew I was going to vanish. They called my number before.
I could decide whether I was brave enough to run. The war was over, but everything still felt like a battlefield, especially us. If this finds you somehow, somewhere, I want you to know it was never because I didn't love you. It was because I did, and I knew I wouldn't survive the shape that love would take in the years to come.
Jay, you fold the letter slowly, fingers lingering on the soft paper. The words feel private, like something you were never meant to see, yet somehow needed to. You pick up another, to my father, whom I never met, postmarked 1981. This one is written in careful block print with small, childish drawings in the margins. Planets, dogs, what might be an attempted version of a time machine. The letter reads, "Dear Dad, we're learning about gravity in school. I told my teacher that I don't believe in it. I think maybe people fall because they miss someone. Mum says you were a pilot, but I think you might have been an astronaut. That's why you're not here. You went too far up and couldn't come back. It's okay. I'll build something to find you. Love. Eli. Age 7. You let out a breath you didn't know you were holding. There's a small ache just behind your ribs now, a warmth too heavy to carry and too soft to set down. That's when the man appears. He doesn't look like a postal worker. If anything, he looks like a librarian who took a wrong turn and ended up in the rain. He holds a large sack over one shoulder, stamped with dozens of old wax seals. People always read, he says, voice low, but they rarely leave anything behind. You glance at him. We're allowed to? He nods. If you write something.
Honest? Doesn't have to be sad, just real. Something you never said. You hesitate, then reach for the blank postcards in a weathered tin nearby. They're all different. Some show old train stations, others empty rooms or forgotten playgrounds.
You choose one with a rainy street lamp and no people in sight. And you write. You don't even think too hard. The words come quickly. A note you didn't know was waiting inside you like a message in a bottle shoved under the ribs. When you're done, the man takes it wordlessly, slips it into his sack and smiles. Don't worry, he says. They always reach who they're meant to, even if the address no longer exists. He tips his hat, just a touch too dramatically, and disappears between two stalls that weren't there a moment ago. You stand, alone in the soft drizzle, heart lighter, but not empty. Just ahead, a soft hum crackles through the rain. Not mechanical, but melodic, like static trying to remember a song. You follow it. A sign appears through the mist. Radio, no electricity required. Broadcasts memories only. And you think, of course it does. You step toward the sound, toward the ghost of someone else's voice. You find the radio stall tucked behind a curtain of warped antennae, some bent into perfect circles, others twisted like question marks. The entire place smells like ozone and velvet, with the faintest undertone of lemon polish, the kind used in grandparents' living rooms. There's a low hum, like the kind that buzzes behind your thoughts when you're just about to fall asleep. The radio itself is huge, an old cathedral-style model with brass knobs and a speaker grill shaped like
a blooming flower.
It's resting on a table draped in maps and cassette tapes labeled in pencil. Milo's 7th birthday, 1973. Flight delay, gate 4, 1999. Phone call never dialed. There's no one around, and yet the radio crackles to life the moment you step close. And so she waited, sitting beside the phone for 3 hours, 22 minutes, and the last hope she'd been willing to give. The voice is warm, old, familiar, like a grandfather telling bedtime stories over a campfire that no longer burns. You reach for the dial. It resists for a moment, then clicks, heavy with intent. The station changes. You walk past her apartment.
Every Tuesday, even though she moved out in April, he just didn't update the habit. You try another. This time there's static first.
Then music, a waltz, played on what sounds like a broken typewriter and a violin that once belonged to someone who forgot how to stop grieving. Then a voice, softer now. December 19th, 1945. Fog in the harbour. The boat never left. Neither did the secret. You step back, unsettled. The radio seems less like it's broadcasting to people, and more like it's remembering for them. A voice calls from behind a rack of tangled wires. Found one that knows you yet? You turn to see a man polishing vacuum tubes with a velvet cloth. He looks like he hasn't slept in years, but his eyes are alert, sharp, and oddly kind. They all sound
real, you say. They are. Memories, not music, he nods. Picked up from places where emotion pooled so strong it left a frequency. Radios like this? They don't play the past. They echo it. He taps the side of the old machine affectionately. This one? Picked it up from a trench in northern France. Plays fragments of love letters disguised as troop orders. You raise an eyebrow. That actually happened? He chuckles.
Historians argue about it. Some think it was code, others think the whole thing was a morale tactic. Personally, I think soldiers got tired of pretending bullets were more important than poems. You glance at the cassettes again. Each one, labelled so plainly yet carrying unimaginable weight. He sees your eyes linger. You can take one. If it plays for you, it's meant for you. You choose a tape labelled Elevator Confession. Chicago, 1986. It's short. Just a breath.
Of music? A shaky voice and a sentence? I didn't say it then, but I loved you. Even if I couldn't press the right floor. Your fingers tighten around the plastic case. The man watches you gently. Some truths only survive in static. He turns away, fussing with a new tube. As you step back into the mist, the hum of
the radio lingers behind you like the trailing scent of a memory not quite yours, but close enough to feel like it might be. Rain patters harder now. You tighten your grip on the umbrella, still shimmering faintly, and glance ahead. There's a clothesline strung between two stalls, and on it hang coats of every imaginable cut: trench, bomber, velvet opera, denim with rhinestones, fur-trimmed,
Feathered, and one that seems to be made entirely of moss, but one coat in particular stands out. It's black.
long and stitched, with a label that reads Month 13, Year 1902, property of the Department of Weather and Misunderstandings. And though you don't remember ever owning it, your hand moves toward it with eerie certainty, because somehow this coat already knows your name. You reach for the coat, half expecting it to vanish when your fingers graze the fabric. But it doesn't. It's real. Heavy too, like it's holding something more than just warmth. The texture is strange, soft like velvet but stitched, with thread that shimmers faintly, as if woven from the reflection of a storm puddle at night. You pull it from the line, and the tag swings forward again. Month 13, Year 1902, property of the Department of Weather and Misunderstandings. You turn it over in your hands, then look up at the shop, if you can even call it that. No walls, no counter, just a circle of raincoats hung from hooks and swaying slightly in a wind that doesn't touch your skin. You slip the coat on. It fits. Of course it does. And that's when everything changes, not the market, not the rain. Your ears tingle first, not from cold, but from comprehension. Suddenly the background noise of the market, the whispers, the rustles, the strange hums you thought were machinery or static, all slide into meaning. You hear a conversation between two loaves of bread arguing over crust philosophy. You catch a sigh from the umbrella woman murmuring backwards about her sister who never came home from the storm in 38. And impossibly, you hear a voice above you whisper, "You're not lost. You're just translated. The coat isn't clothing, it's context. A decoder ring for the impossible." Feels weird, doesn't it? Comes a voice to your right. You turn to see a tall woman in a pinstriped apron and leather gloves hanging.
"Another coat on the line. They always forget to warn people," she says.
That one's tuned to the forgotten dialect of misplaced intentions. Very fashionable in 1902, very unpopular at dinner parties. You open your mouth to ask a question, but she holds up a gloved hand. No talking just yet. She smiles. You're still calibrating. She gestures at your feet. You look down and see, of course, your shoelaces have tied themselves into the shape of a compass rose. "It'll pass," she adds. Usually after you sneeze or say something deeply sincere by accident. You laugh, and just like that, the sound levels out. The whispering around you returns to nonsense, and your own thoughts feel like your own again, though tinged with a faint aftertaste of antique perfume and a dash of trench coat diplomacy. The woman folds her arms. People don't realize that. Clothes used to carry responsibility. You wore what you meant. You buttoned your convictions. These days, everyone just dresses for meetings and coffee spills. She pulls a lighter coat from the line, yellow, child-sized, with a patch that reads, "Regretfully left at bus stop, 1957. This one still cries when it's alone, she says, setting it gently in a trunk. We don't hang it on rainy days. You feel something shift in your pocket. You reach in and pull out a folded note that wasn't there before. It's handwritten in deep blue ink. If you find this, then the coat has
chosen you. Don't worry, it rarely makes the same mistake twice.
There's no signature. You look up to ask the woman about it, but she's already gone, her coat rippling behind her like she walked into another page of the market. Rain trickles down the back of your neck, not cold, not warm, just grounding. You adjust the coat and feel a tug at your thoughts, like a magnetic pull toward the far end of the aisle. There, behind a rack of bird cages and abandoned musical instruments, is a stall glowing with soft amber light. It smells like photo developer fluid and a little bit like lightning. A sign hangs crookedly above the tented entry. Memory processing, 1 hour or decades later. And through the flap, you see black and white photographs, some moving slightly, some refusing to stay still. And on one of them, you swear just for a moment you see your own silhouette standing beside someone you've never met, but maybe you will, or maybe you already have. You step through the tent flap, and the light dims instantly. Not in a threatening way, but in that soft, amber kind of hush that settles over a photo darkroom or the final minutes of sunset on a quiet lake. Everything smells like fixer and fog. The walls are strung with photos on wire lines, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, fluttering slightly though there's no breeze. Most are black and white, some sepia. A few are tinted with that eerie, too bright color that only existed in the 1960s when cameras had ambition but no subtlety. You approach the nearest image. It shows 2 boys at the edge of a pond, one holding a bicycle wheel, the other holding a sparkler that's clearly lit, despite the fact that the pond is frozen solid. Beneath the photo is a brass tag, February the 2nd, 1941, still deciding.
If it was worth the walk. A voice behind you hums like a slide projector, warming up. She kept that one in her purse until she died. You turn and find a man wearing photo gloves and a welder's apron, leaning over a tray of solution.
He's dipping a photo into the liquid like it's sacred, then slowly lifting it into the glow of an overhead bulb. The image develops right before your eyes. At first, it's just shadows and grain. Then, a girl sitting on the roof of a shed.
Reading a letter. There's a cat on her lap and a string of paper cranes above her. You blink. The scene feels familiar. Recognize it? He asks. I think so. He nods without surprise. It happens. Photos here don't just show what
was, they show what you might have remembered differently. He gestures to the lines of pictures overhead. Every photo here?
Taken by someone's memory. Not a camera. This one? He plucks a Polaroid from a rotating rack. Captured during a dream someone had about a conversation they meant to have with their mother. Never had it. But the memory stuck anyway. He
holds it up. It shows 2 cups of tea, side by side, both steaming. One has lipstick on the rim. The other is completely still, like it hasn't been sipped. You find yourself whispering, "That's beautiful." He shrugs. Memory often is, even when it's lying. As you wander deeper, you notice a small partition in the back. Above, the curtain is a painted sign, "Personal Development Room." Curiosity wins. Inside is a simple photo booth, coin slot, red curtain, vinyl seat, nothing special, except for the scrawled chalkboard beside it that reads, "Insert a memory. Get back the version you never told anyone." You pause, then, almost without thinking, you reach into your coat pocket again and pull out that same folded note. But this time, it's changed. There's a new line beneath the old handwriting. Sometimes we don't forget. We just misfile. You step into the booth. Sit. The curtain closes. The light above the lens pulses. Once. Twice. Then a quiet voice from the machine speaks. "Tell us the memory you never say out loud." You hesitate. Then you speak. Not the story you tell. Friends, not the cleaned-up version. You tell it messy, quiet, honest, like exhaling a truth you didn't know was choking you. The machine hums, then spits out a strip of photos. You stare at them. The first image is you, clearly you but younger. Eyebrows raised, holding something glowing in your palm. The second is of someone you loved and forgot how to describe. The third is blank. The fourth shows the market, but it's empty. No stalls, no people, just wet cobblestone and an umbrella sitting. Closed in the middle of it all, you blink, and the image fades like fog against glass. You step out of the booth. The developer is watching you from across the tent. He nods knowingly, doesn't speak, just lifts one finger and points to the flap leading back to the market. Next stall's waiting, he finally says. You'll know it by the sound of paper breathing. You follow the direction of his finger. The rain has slowed into a mist, the kind that hovers more than falls. And sure enough, somewhere up ahead, beneath an arch of flickering lanterns, you hear it. That soft, dry flutter. Pages moving, not turned, just inhaling. And something tells you that these pages aren't blank, they're unfinished, waiting for someone like you to finish them wrong, or right, but only if you're brave enough to read the last word first. The sound grows clearer as you approach, like a slow exhale through parchment lungs. The stall itself is modest, built from reclaimed wood and bound together by thick twine. Instead of shelves, stories are clipped to a lattice of wires that crisscross the ceiling like spiderwebs. Loose pages sway gently in the mist, as if they're unsure whether they want to be read or not. A small placard above the entrance reads, "Unfinished manuscripts, some assembly required." You duck beneath a curtain of hanging bookmarks, each one hand-painted with a title that doesn't exist yet. The Man Who Refused to Blink. Chapter 7 was a lie. Her garden grew apologies. Inside, everything smells like pencil lead, tea leaves, and a touch of ancient regret. A few mismatched chairs surround a reading table covered in scraps, paragraphs, half-dialogues, sketched character arcs with coffee stains, and furious edits in red pen. You pick up a page, it's typed on an old Smith Corona ribbon, and reads, "Oh, and when she opened the door, she didn't find her brother. She found herself, but written differently. Older, braver, more tired." She stepped back and shut the door gently because this version wasn't ready yet. Another scrap lies beside it, penned in shaky cursive. The king never returned, not because he lost, but because he forgot why he left in the first place. You look around, half expecting an eccentric editor or a ghost with an ink-stained vest. Instead, a man appears from behind a stack of unfinished outlines. He's holding a fountain pen like a conductor's baton. His vest has too many pockets, and his eyes look like they've read every ending and still aren't convinced any of them stuck. He nods to you. Pick one. One what? You ask. Unfinished story. Take it, complete it, or don't. Some stories only want to be held for a moment. You sift through the pile and find one that calls to you. Just 3 sentences she never remembered, packing the suitcase. But there it was, full of postcards she never wrote, all addressed to places that don't exist. You feel something tighten in your chest. The man watches your face. "That one's sticky," he says. "Sticks to the ribs like old grief." You ask if these are real. He smiles gently. They're moments that got tired of waiting for a plot. Historical or not? Depends who finishes them. There's still debate about whether Queen Victoria actually kept a diary where she described her dreams about cities that were never built. Some say fiction, others say prophecy. You ask if anyone ever finishes the stories. Sometimes, he shrugs. Sometimes they finish you. A soft wind rustles the pages overhead. One flutters down and lands by your feet. You pick it up. It's handwritten in tight script. "Dear reader, we didn't know how to end this one. We hoped maybe you would." You fold the page carefully and tuck it into your coat. The man doesn't stop you. He simply begins sorting through another pile, whispering to himself in plot holes and ellipses. As you leave the stall, the fog presses in a little closer, like a curtain being drawn before intermission. The market is quieter now, like it's listening to its own heartbeat, or maybe yours. Ahead, there's a narrow alley you hadn't noticed before, where the stalls give way to stone steps descending into a dim corridor lit by gaslight. No signs, no smells, just a feeling. You step forward. Your foot taps something hard. It's a coin. But not any coin you've seen before. It's stamped with the words, "Department of Gratitude." Weight may vary. As you pick it up, a woman passing by catches your eye. She's wearing a shawl made of faded receipts and ticket stubs. She nods toward the steps. "They'll weigh you next," she says softly, "but not how you think." And just like that, she's gone. You glance back at the coin, then at the dark stairwell ahead. Somewhere below, something is waiting to tell you exactly how much of yourself you've carried, knowingly or not. And you start to wonder, what happens when a scale doesn't measure your mass, but your meaning? The stone steps curve gently downward, like a spiral cut from time itself. You descend slowly, your shoes echoing with a kind of hesitant rhythm. Each step feels observed, not judged exactly, but counted. The coin in your pocket has grown heavier, or maybe you're just starting to understand what it's made of. At the bottom, there's a small alcove carved into the stone. A single lamp glows warmly above a doorway framed in ivy and tarnished brass. On the door is a plaque. The Gratitude. Scale, exact, change only. You hesitate before pushing it open. The room inside is small and round, like the inside of an observatory. But instead of stars, the ceiling is covered in handwritten notes, each pinned carefully with copper tacks. A few float slightly, like they're undecided about staying. At the center of the room sits a large, old-fashioned scale, the kind you'd expect to see weighing sacks of flour or priceless gemstones. Its base is carved with vines, little birds, and something that might be a weeping fox. Behind it stands a figure, not tall, not short, wearing a patchwork suit made
of old thank you letters, faded grocery lists, and scribbled song lyrics. Their face is gentle, ageless. "You brought something?" they ask, their voice soft as a library at dusk. You nod and place the coin on the scale. At first, nothing happens.
Then the left plate, where your coin rests, sinks low, as if you'd placed a memory too dense to lift. The figure watches quietly. "This is heavier than most," they murmur. "You've carried a lot of unspoken gratitude," you frown. "But I've said thank you plenty. Out loud maybe, but not always to yourself, or for the right things." They pull a thin card from the wall and hand it to you. It reads, "Thank you for surviving things you never named. Thank you for being kind even when you didn't want to be. Thank you for still noticing small joys even when no one else is looking." You feel a lump rise in your throat. The figure offers no sermon, just a slight tilt of the head. "Most people don't come here on purpose," they say. "They stumble in when they're ready." You nod slowly, eyes scanning the notes on the ceiling. Some are written in crayon, others in shaky cursive. One simply says, "Thanks for the sandwich. You never knew I was starving." Another, "Thanks for forgiving me before I apologized." The weight of the room is not oppressive, it's tender. like the pressure of a hand you forgot was holding yours. You turn to leave, but the figure stops you gently. You can take your coin, they say, but it's been weighed. Exactly, they smile. Now it won't burden. It will remind. You pocket it again, lighter now somehow, then step back out into the mist. The market feels different, brighter, no, clearer. As if you've been walking through fog, and now the edges of things are beginning to sharpen. Not because the fog is lifting, but because you are learning to see through it. Up ahead, a familiar smell catches your nose. Coffee? Cinnamon? A bit of both? You follow it to a stall with no sign, only a velvet curtain pulled halfway aside. Inside, there's nothing but a single table and a set of stairs leading down beneath it. A woman waits beside the opening. She's wearing a brooch shaped like
a compass, and her expression is equal parts patience and mischief. This part of the market, she says, it's below the surface. Most people don't notice it. You ask what's down there. She grins. A room that knows what you've
forgotten. And you realize you're not just wandering anymore, you're remembering your way forward. You glance at the stairs beneath the velvet-draped table. They don't look particularly special. Wooden, well-worn, a little creaky. But as you descend, the temperature changes. The air thickens, not unpleasantly, but like walking into a room that hasn't been disturbed in years. The kind of space that holds its breath and waits to see who you'll become before deciding how it feels about you. At the bottom, there's a doorway. Above it, carved into the arch in looping script, the room of what you forgot. You hesitate, your fingers resting on the doorframe. You try to imagine what you've forgotten. Nothing comes to mind because of course it doesn't. That's how forgetting works. Then the door opens. No handle, no lock. It just decides to let you in. Inside, the room is silent. Not quiet, silent. The kind of silence that makes your ears strain, wondering if you're still real. It's round, dimly lit, and lined floor to ceiling with drawers. Hundreds of them, each with a brass label and a small keyhole. You step inside, immediately, one drawer creaks open by itself. You walk over. Its label reads, "The Moment." You realized you were enough, but dismissed it too fast. Inside is a single item. A movie ticket stub from a theater you barely remember, and a tiny note. They looked
at you like you mattered. You just forgot to believe them.
You close the drawer slowly. Another one opens across the room. This one reads, "The name of the street you laughed on until you cried." Inside is a bottle cap, still faintly sticky, and a receipt with 2 drinks and a side of fries, circled. You remember the street now, you remember the laugh, you remember that you weren't alone, and suddenly the room feels warmer. A third drawer opens. You brace yourself. The first time, you thought, maybe you're not broken, just tired. Inside, a single post-it note with 4 words written in your handwriting. "I'm still here though." Your eyes sting. You look around and realize some drawers aren't opening. Not yet, and some, you sense, never will. You reach for one that's slightly ajar. The tag is blank. Inside is a folded napkin with the words, "Tell her anyway." You don't know who. You don't know what, but you nod because part of you does. As you stand there, the silence shifts, not broken, just enriched. You hear a low sound like breath under floorboards or a sigh inside a memory. Then a door you hadn't noticed opens at the far end of the chamber. Beyond it, a staircase curling upward. Each step lit by the soft glow of lanterns made from old bicycle reflectors and typewriter keys. You climb, slower now. Heavier, not in burden, but in awareness. At the top, the air is fresh again. Rain touched, a little cleaner. The market is still there, but quieter, thinned out. The stalls have spaced themselves wider. Fewer voices, fewer shoppers, as if you're closer to the core now. To something the market doesn't show just anyone. Ahead, you see an empty stall. No signs, no items, just a chair, a small table, a folded map, and a man sipping tea from a chipped mug that reads, "Ask me what you forgot to want." You approach, slower than before. More careful with your steps. You feel the coat shift gently around your shoulders, like it's watching too. The man looks up. He nods at the chair opposite him. "Well," he says, "you made it this far. Now, what were you hoping not to find?" You sit. The chair creaks like it remembers someone heavier than you, someone with regrets larger than yours perhaps, but it doesn't complain. Across the table, the man refills his mug from a steel thermos and slides it towards you. You glance inside. It's not tea, it's warmth itself. Liquid comfort. The kind of drink that doesn't have a name, but knows exactly how tired your heart is. He waits, then asks again, quieter this time. "So, what were you hoping not to find?" You try to answer, but the words snag in your throat like burrs. So, instead, you pick up the folded map on the table. It's blank. He smiles. Of course it is. You haven't finished deciding where you're going. He pulls out a pencil and hands it to you. Draw it. Not the geography, just the desire. You frown, but your hand moves anyway. Slowly. First a circle, then a small figure, then a doorway, then another figure. No labels, just shapes. You stop. He leans forward, glancing at your sketch. He nods. You drew returning. Most people do. They think they're searching for something new, but often they're just hoping to be allowed back into something they left behind. You glance. Up, he adds. Some return to people, others to promises, and a few to the versions of themselves they never gave enough time to grow. He sips from his own cup, sighs thoughtfully. I once met someone here who came looking for a letter they never sent. Ended up realizing they didn't want to send it. They just wanted permission not to regret it. You smile, tired. Do people find what they need here? Sometimes, he shrugs. Sometimes they find what they deserve. Sometimes they find what's ready to be found. He reaches under the table and pulls out a small wooden box. It's labeled "Requested," then buried. He slides it to you. Open it. Inside is a single item, a key. Old, rusted, heart-shaped handle. You turn it over in your palm. It's warm. You ask, "What does it open?" He smiles. That's the fun part. It only works on doors you lock. Yourself. You sit with that. He continues, softer now. We all have them. Rooms we slammed shut when things hurt too much. Closets of dreams we outgrew too soon. Drawers labeled "later." He gestures at your coat pocket. Reach in. You do, and you pull out a folded page, not a map, not a photo, a piece of a journal, your handwriting, clearly. The top reads things I said I'd never do again that I secretly miss. The list has one item on it, hope too loudly. You swallow. The man places both hands on the table. No more riddles now, just a kind face in a market made of memory and rain. You're
almost at the center, he says. But be careful, the market doesn't just reveal, it reflects.
He nods toward a narrow passage now forming behind you. Stone arch. Lanterns. A curtain of rain that doesn't fall. It rises. You stand. As you do, the man whispers. The next stall isn't one you visit. It's one that opens if it thinks you'll stay. You turn back to ask what that means, but he's gone. The stall is empty again. No table, no chair. Just your cup of comfort, still steaming, untouched. You step through the rising rain. It kisses your arms gently, like memory forgiving.
Itself and ahead.
A quiet corridor lined with hundreds of empty picture frames, each one waiting for a moment to become worth remembering. And one, at the very end, that already holds your face, smiling, unaware, standing in the rain, holding something you're just about to lose. You walk slowly past the frames. Some are gilded, others chipped, all empty, except for the one at the end. And there you are, frozen in time. A younger version of yourself standing in the rain, head tilted, smiling. Not the smile you use for photos or politeness, but that rare, reflexive kind of smile. The one that escapes before your brain can ask if it's allowed. You're holding something in the image. A paper bag. You lean in. It's plain, damp, fragile looking. But the version of you in the frame is holding it with care, like it contains a life, or at least a reason to try again tomorrow. Below the frame is a tiny plaque. It reads, "The thing you carried when you still believed it could work." You step back. The image fades. Not dramatically, just gently. As if giving you space. At the far end of the corridor, you hear a soft rattle. Then the whisper of turning. Pages. You follow the sound into the next space. A vast round room with no roof. Rain falls in a perfect circle around the edge, but the center remains dry. The sky above glows that impossible shade of silver grey that only exists between storms. In the center of the room is a table. On it, a book. Huge, leather-bound, unlabeled. You step closer. The pages are blank until you touch them. Then words begin to appear. Not written in ink, not etched or printed. They rise slowly, as if being exhaled from the parchment itself. You came looking for a market that only opens on rainy days. But maybe you were always here. Maybe the rain came looking for you. You've walked through memories you didn't know. You missed, heard voices you thought had gone quiet, carried weights that weren't yours alone, and still you moved forward. You've opened doors meant to stay shut, and you've left others closed gently because you finally understood they don't need reopening. The next page turns on its own. And now, here at the center, you are not asked to decide anything. You are simply asked to notice. You are still here. You are still listening. And that is enough. Your hand lingers on the edge of the book. The pages go still again. From the shadows near the wall, you hear footsteps. Slow, deliberate, not threatening. A figure appears wrapped in a cloak made entirely of stitched-together shopping lists and forgotten birthday cards. You recognize the face. It's yours. Older, not necessarily by age, but by acceptance. This version of you nods, then holds out. A small parcel wrapped in wax paper and tied with string. You take it. It's the same bag from the picture. Inside,
A sandwich, still warm. You laugh, half in disbelief, half in wonder. It smells like a memory someone packed for a version of you who didn't make it all the way. But you did. And now it's yours again. Your reflection speaks, not out loud.
But in your mind, you don't need to find every answer. You just need to keep showing up for the questions. And then the room tilts, not physically, but inward, like everything is folding back into itself, not ending, just dissolving like fog in morning sun. Rain begins to fall gently on your shoulders. This time, you don't mind. Somewhere in the distance, the market breathes and then exhales. You look down the hallway you came from, only it's gone. There's
no going back, but that's not a threat, it's a promise. Because somewhere out there, past the frames and coats and letters and radios and weightless scales, there's a world that didn't change. You did. And as you take your first step out,
into that rain, the market fades behind you, not erased, not forgotten, just waiting. For the next time, you're ready to remember. The rain meets your skin like silk, soft, deliberate, knowing. Not the kind that rushes or scolds. This is the rain of a place that understands patience, that waits for your thoughts to settle before it speaks again. You walk forward. There is no path, but your feet know where to go. The world around you is quieter now. The sounds of the market, its chatter, its peculiar music, its rustling truths have folded themselves away like a closing book. The only thing ahead is a canopy. Made of patched-together awnings and calendar pages, it shimmers with droplets that refuse to fall. Beneath it, a single stall. It's different than the others. There are no shelves, no wares, just a black velvet tablecloth stretched across an old wooden frame and a cluster of objects arranged as if they've been waiting for years. A jar of marbles, a cracked wristwatch with no hands, a toy piano with only one working key, and a small notebook titled "For When You Were Almost Someone Else." You hesitate before picking it up, but something in your chest whispers, "Go on." The pages are filled, not with your handwriting, but someone else's. Someone who almost became you. Each entry begins the same way. I nearly became... You flip through. I nearly became someone who never forgave their father. I nearly became someone who stopped writing after the third rejection letter. I nearly became someone who believed they were too late to change. And then, I nearly became someone who never came to the market. You feel a shiver crawl down your spine, not from cold, but from recognition. That version of you is still nearby. Always will be. But it didn't win. It didn't get the final say. Across from the table, a curtain rustles. Behind it, you sense
movement. A low hum, like a kettle about to boil. Or a voice clearing its throat. You pull back the curtain and find a mirror, not large, not ornate. Just a simple pane in a wooden frame, fogged around the edges like it's been breathing. You step
closer. At first, it shows nothing, then it shows you. But not just you as you are, you as you might be, a little taller, or maybe just standing straighter. The shadows beneath your eyes are still there, but softer. There's a look in your eyes, familiar but not recent. Confidence,
maybe, or peace. Your reflection blinks, you blink back, and then the mirror cracks, not violently, just one clean fracture right down the center. It doesn't break your image, just doubles it.
As if to say, you are allowed to be more than one version of yourself. You stare for a long moment. Then the curtain falls back into place on its own. You return to the table. The objects are gone now. All but one, a train ticket. Faded, punched, once at the corner. No station listed, no departure time, just 3 words stamped in red ink. Valid in rain. You tuck it into your pocket next to the coin. The coat settles on your shoulders like it's proud of you, and the air around you shifts again, smelling now of fresh laundry and a field you've never stood in but have always wanted to. A breeze pushes open a hidden side flap in the canopy. Outside, the market glimmers dimly behind the mist. You can't
See the path anymore, but you know where it is, you always have.
You step through the final flap and the world narrows, not in size but in sound. Everything sharpens into stillness, the kind that's not empty but expectant. You are no longer just wandering through memory, you're inside the last layer of the market, and it's quiet. Too quiet for rain. The stalls have thinned, the voices are gone. The air smells like pages turned in old libraries and sleep that almost reaches dreaming. It is the silence of something waiting to exhale. Ahead of you is a wide stone platform under an open sky. Rain drifts upward here, not down, spiraling in reverse, like time reconsidering its decision. And at the center of the platform is a gate, not a grand arch. Not a door, just a simple wooden frame that leads nowhere visible. But standing before it is a figure dressed in charcoal grey. They don't speak. Instead, they hold out a piece of paper. You take it, it's a list, but it's not a shopping list, not a to-do list, not even a bucket list. It's a list of everything you left behind that wasn't yours to carry, the guilt you inherited but never earned, the silence you kept because you thought it kept others comfortable, the version of yourself someone else dreamed up but never saw clearly. You feel your chest tighten, not painfully, just fully, like a drawer finally pulled all the way open. At the bottom of the page, there's a question. Would you like to
Leave this here, you look up. The figure is still silent. Just waiting. You nod. They reach forward and gently take the page from your hands. Then they feed it into a tiny slot on the side of the gate. It bursts into a curl of ash and smoke. And then?
You hear something strange. Laughter. Not loud, not jarring, just a soft chuckle. The kind you let out when you realize something didn't matter as much as you thought it did. The gate swings open. There's nothing on the other side. And everything,
street you haven't walked yet, a cup of coffee waiting somewhere, a name you haven't remembered, a breath you haven't taken, a sunrise that hasn't missed you. The market won't come with you, but it doesn't have to, because it never was a place. It was a process, a permission slip, a rain-soaked reminder. You take a step forward and feel nothing under your foot.
For a moment. Just air, then ground, then breath, then self. And as you cross through the gate, the coat vanishes from your shoulders, but the warmth stays. So does the coin, and somewhere deep in your pocket, you feel the paper bag with the sandwich.
Inside, still warm, still waiting.
Still enough. The rain continues behind you. You don't look back, because now you finally know how to walk forward. Not as someone searching for the market, but as someone who has been changed by it forever. Now slow your breath. Let your thoughts
drift. Let the memory of rain soften into nothing. You are no longer walking, you are resting. The market will wait. It always does. Even when the sky is clear, even when you forget you ever found it, especially then. So let the mist rise. Let the doors
close and listen very closely. to the quiet. Let your heartbeat slow. Let the warmth find you again. Let the last page fold shut.